Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested here at Comic-Con 2017. This is Darin Gordine. Darin's with Weta Workshop. How are you doing, Darin?
Very well, thank you.
I hear it's your first time at Comic-Con.
It is my first time at Comic-Con and to America also.
And to America, welcome.
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you very much.
But you've been working with Weta Workshop as a costume technician for how many years now?
I've been working at Weta Workshop for 19 years now. I started work there when we began production on The Lord of the Rings. So
amazing.
Quite a while.
Yeah, and you guys don't make just armor, you guys make all sorts of costumes. When we visited you guys, your workshop last year, we saw things in progress.
Sure.
And which is really cool, but to see the costumes you guys have brought to Comic-Con, they're stunning. This is, of course, the Red Ranger from the latest Power Rangers film. Can you tell me about the process of making this costume, what you guys did to make it stand out? Because it's more than just your typical superhero costume.
Yeah, we tried to add an extra element of detail and depth to the armor pieces. And as you can see up here, we've kind of got this texture, and we cast it in optically clear urethane that was tinted, and it has this texture behind it to give it that extra depth. A lot of difficulty getting the product with no bubbles and the right tint on everything.
Yeah, so structurally you have a bodysuit. Like you have the Lycra suit that we see in a lot of superhero costumes, and they're raised screen printing on that.
Yeah, that's right. We used a special ink that's called a blowout ink, and when they bake it, it actually raises up and gives you that added texture there.
Oh.
And we glued the flexible urethane onto the suit, giving the actors actually had a great level of sort of flexibility and movement in these suits, which they love because not all suits have that element of...
Right. Now, were the hard parts, were those hand sculpted or digitally sculpted and then cast? What's that fabrication process like?
Sure. Basically, we'll get the design, and then a team of us will make a black foam mock-up, basically, to get the pieces articulated right and fitting right. They'll take those pieces to the 3D department and scan them. They will finesse them in the computer and print them out, 3D printing. Then it will go to the prop department. They will add the texture behind and add the sort of metal texture over and everything. And then it goes to the mold shop, casting, paint shop, comes back to the costume department, and then we assemble the whole suit together.
An incredibly collaborative piece. How many of these suits did you make for the film?
We made the 5 actors, the 5 characters, and we did about 4 of each of those, and a couple of Green Rangers too.
Wow, it's amazing. I'm glad you guys got to bring this to Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And so this is obviously science fiction, futuristic costume, but you guys have done a whole range of costumes, so let's check some of those out.
All right, thanks.
So Darin, from costumes you guys made last year to costumes that have really the beginnings of Weta Workshop.
That's right. Yep.
This is Sauron. When was this one made?
This would have been made probably the late 90s. Wow. For the Lord of the Rings. Back in the day, we actually had blacksmiths on site who shaped all this in actual metal. The design on it has been acid etched into
acid etched filigree.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
And it's steel. It's not aluminum.
That was built in steel, yep. This is actually a urethane replica, which they wore on set, so they could do the stunt work, etc.
So it's a stunt Sauron.
That's right, yeah, but it's molded off the original steel suit, yep.
Oh my God, that blows my mind that you guys took the time to hammer in helmets and then do the filigree, which I know isn't easy, and then had to make multiple ones.
Sure, yeah, and this was a quick build too. I think it was probably done in less than two months to build the Sauron.
And so, where the costumes sit, is there an archives where all the costumes from the films?
Sure, there is an archive. Most of them are just in storage. We have a few at the Weta tour you can go on in New Zealand on display, but the majority of them are just stored. Yep.
And as a costume tech, when you look at a piece of armor that was made so many years ago, do you I wish if I made it today I would have done it differently, or that was a really good idea?
I do think that, because I look back at some of the costumes I made for the Lord of the Rings, like King Theoden, which is a great piece, but I think looking at it, if I tried again, I think it would be a heck of a lot better.
Oh yeah. But it's still a lot of the same processes. You guys are doing molding, casting, and the finishing and the painting.
Sure, that's right. We no longer have a blacksmith on site, so a lot of the stuff, say for instance for The Hobbit, the metalwork was done sort of digitally sculpted and 3D printed. So the processes have changed with time, and a lot of that is just to do with like speeding up the process.
Right, the rapid prototyping. You guys are big fans of digitally sculpting.
Yeah.
When you digitally sculpt, do you still try to make it look handmade and hand hammered?
Absolutely, yeah. And often they will print out a piece, and then they will go to the prop shop and they will texture it. They'll add that sort of fine detail on top of the 3D prints before it goes to the mold shop.
That's awesome. It's so cool to see this piece brought to Comic-Con.
Yeah,
and there's one more piece, let's go check it out.
Yeah, sure.
And Darin, finally, you guys have this suit, and this is from a film called Spectral, which was released in the States on Netflix.
Yes.
What can you tell me about the making of this armor?
Again, a very sort of different type of armor here. We have a very sort of military look, kind of contemporary but kind of futuristic. Tried to keep it based in reality. We have a sort of softer Under Armour suit and then some hard elements on top, and of course the weaponry to go with it.
So when you're piecing something that's supposed to look militaristic, there's for costume makers sometimes there's a whole repository of surplus costume that you can then add on to. How much of this is from scratch versus found parts?
Yeah, sure. At Weta we actually like to try and sort of, although it's based in reality, we try to stay away from shop bought fittings, etc. So we'll try and develop, our own individual fittings and details. And if we have to use a bought store piece, we'll try and mask it somehow by just dressing it up a little bit. Yeah.
Right. I mean, just like that Power Rangers uniform, you have a mixture of soft and hard parts.
That's right.
For there was the Lycra and then the urethane.
Yep.
Here you have the leather and then also some hard parts.
Sure.
That mixed media look really shows up well on screen.
Yeah, I think it does. And something we try to do at Weta is build in a lot of sort of detail with the piping and all the little ports and everything. Sometimes you don't pick it up on screen, but I think if it's not there, it doesn't look as good. So that's something we try to do, is just have like a lot of very fine detail on the pieces.
How many separate pieces does a costume usually, like this is pretty complex. You have
that
chest
one
armor.
there, I'd probably say at least maybe 150 individual pieces connected together. Even with the pattern drafting on the garments, there's a lot of panels and stuff involved. So at least, probably more,
And then for actors and stunt actors have to suit that up. That's you get them fitted. I mean, that's part of your job, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. And then the gun, of course, is so incredible. Since District 9 when you guys worked on, I noticed you guys have started, like the digital design of these guns allow them to be very, very complex.
Yeah, that's right. And that's something Weta prides themselves on, their weapons props. And again, something we try to add is all the very, very fine detail, right down to the little serial numbers and tiny little ports and screws. We like to add all the wiring and everything to it, just to make it look like it's actually could be functional, And
some of the screws there could just be castings. They're not actual real hardware even.
That's right, but having that detail there, really adds to the look of it,
That's so awesome, Darin. Thank you so much for showing me some of your costumes.
No worries.
And have a great time at Comic-Con.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Cheers, mate.